It's coming. Trust in divine timing. My friends, I want you to know tonight that there is nothing in your life that is delayed, denied, or withheld from you. What you have longed for, prayed for, and imagined in the secret chambers of your mind is already here, only clothed in the garment of time. Do not despair if it has not yet taken visible form. It is coming. Trust in divine timing. When I speak of divine timing, I do not mean chance, luck, or circumstance. I mean the perfect unfolding of the invisible into the visible. Every seed carries within itself the appointed hour of germination, the season of blossoming, and the moment of harvest. You would not condemn the seed for not bearing fruit the day after it is sown. You would not dig it up in frustration, demanding proof. You would trust the process. So too with the seed of your desire. Every desire planted in imagination is already a seed destined to manifest. When you first feel the stirring of a longing within you, when an image arises in your mind of something you wish to experience, it is not a random thought, nor is it a fleeting fantasy. It is a seed planted in the soil of your consciousness. Just as every seed carries within it the blueprint of the tree, the flower, or the harvest it will one day become, so too does every desire carry within it the pattern of its fulfillment. You need not wonder whether it is possible, for the very fact that you are able to imagine it is the proof that it already exists in the unseen. Think of the seed buried in the earth. When you plant it, you do not dig it up each day to check if it is sprouting. You know that within the darkness, beyond your sight, the seed is undergoing a transformation. It is breaking, it is germinating, it is forming roots and preparing to send forth a shoot. That process is invisible, but it is inevitable. You trust the seed because you know the law that which is planted will grow. In the same way, when you clothe yourself in the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you have planted a seed in the fertile soil of imagination. Though your physical eyes may see no change, and though the world may appear as though nothing has shifted, the process has already begun. Your imagination is the womb of creation. It conceives, nurtures, and brings forth all that you will ever experience. When a desire enters your heart, it is already life stirring in that womb. The form may not yet be visible to the senses, but the fact that you have seen it in imagination, that you have felt it as real, means it has already been conceived. Just as a mother does not see the child in the earliest days of pregnancy, but knows with certainty that life is within her, so too must you treat your desire. You may not see its evidence, but you must know it has already begun its journey to visibility. Do not confuse the unseen with the unreal. The invisible realm is the source of all that appears. Everything you now see in your world was once invisible, once imagined, once a seed hidden beneath the soil of consciousness. The home you dwell in, the chair upon which you sit, the clothes you wear, all these were once only ideas in the minds of men. They were unseen, yet they were not unreal. They existed fully in consciousness before ever taking shape in the world. Your desire is no different. It is real because you have imagined it. It is inevitable because you have felt it. You must train yourself to trust this process, to see your desire as a living seed, already planted, already growing, already reaching toward manifestation. You need not strain, nor do you need to beg or plead. The seed does not beg the earth to allow it to grow. It simply follows the law of its own nature. It draws from the unseen nutrients. It expands silently. It breaks through the soil at the appointed hour. Likewise, your assumption, the state you dwell in within imagination, draws to itself the conditions, people, and circumstances necessary for its fulfillment. Every desire you hold has its appointed hour. Just as no two seeds blossom at the same pace, so too does each desire have its own time of unfolding. Some come swiftly, breaking forth almost as soon as you imagine them. Others require patience, for the roots must spread deep before the stalk can rise. But whether swiftly or slowly, whether in days or in months, the law is unchanging. What you have sown in imagination must appear in form. The key is to remain faithful to the seed. Do not uproot it with doubt. Do not smother it with fear. Do not curse it for taking too long. Nurture it instead with the water of belief, with the sunlight of expectation, with the quiet assurance that it is growing even now. Your desire is alive, and its fulfillment is certain, because every desire planted in imagination is already a seed destined to manifest. Divine timing is never late, never early. It is always perfect. What seems to us as delay or as a missed opportunity is, in truth, the unfolding of an order far greater than the human mind can comprehend. There is a rhythm to life, a perfect current that carries each desire, each event, and each manifestation to its rightful place and moment. Just as the sun rises at the appointed hour, just as the tides obey the pull of the moon, so too does the manifestation of your desire appear at the exact time it is meant to. You cannot rush it, and you cannot postpone it. It comes when conditions are ripe, when the soil of your consciousness is ready, when all things are aligned in harmony. Imagine a farmer planting crops in different seasons. He knows that one crop flourishes in spring, another in summer, another in autumn. Though he may long for a harvest before its time, he cannot force the seed to ripen in winter. He must trust the seasons, knowing that each has its appointed hour. In the same way, every desire you hold is bound to its perfect season of fulfillment. You may wish it to appear instantly, but the divine knows the precise hour when it will serve your growth, your path, and your joy most completely. To the impatient eye, it looks like delay, but to the deeper vision, it is perfection. When you look back over your life, you will see that many things you once wanted so desperately did not arrive when you thought they should. Yet when they did arrive, you saw how perfectly timed they were. A meeting that seemed accidental, a door that opened after long waiting, an opportunity that appeared just as another closed. All of it followed an order that hindsight reveals, but foresight often cannot grasp. This is the way of divine timing. It is a rhythm that does not fail. To trust in divine timing is to rest in faith, to release the restless demand of the mind that insists, why not now? The mind, caught in impatience, measures time by minutes, hours, and days. It knows only urgency and longing. But the divine measures time differently. It does not measure at all, for in the unseen, all things already exist. Time is simply the clothing by which the invisible makes itself known in the visible. The manifestation is not being created, it is being revealed, and the moment of its revelation is never random. Consider the growth of a child. From conception to birth, every stage is ordered, every week brings a new development, every month unfolds in its own precision. No step can be skipped. The process cannot be hurried without harm, nor can it be slowed without consequence. The child is born at the perfect time, and the mother waits, not with despair, but with expectation. This is how you must see your desires. They are conceived in imagination, nourished in belief, and brought forth at their appointed hour. The process is exact, and you cannot misplace it. The beauty of trusting divine timing is that it relieves you of strain. You no longer need to grasp or chase after what you have imagined. You no longer need to fear that you are missing out or falling behind. You know that what belongs to you cannot pass you by, that what you have already accepted in imagination must come to you in the outer world. The very pressure you feel when you long for something is not a sign of delay, but a sign of approach. The unease you call waiting is the stretching of your consciousness as it grows to match the reality you have assumed. To resist the timing is to suffer. To surrender to it is to live in peace. When you know that divine timing is never late, never early, but always perfect, you stop fretting over days and hours. You live as though the promise is already kept, as though the fulfillment is already yours. And in truth it is. Time is merely the veil that hides the fact until the appointed hour of its unveiling. Delay does not mean denial. Silence is proof the work is complete. Often, when the outer world shows no sign of change, the human mind grows restless. It begins to question, to doubt, to fear that what was longed for will never come. Yet the very absence of visible evidence is the surest sign that the process is underway. Just as the seed lies silent beneath the soil before breaking the surface, so too does the desire you have assumed remain hidden before it makes itself known in your life. The stillness is not emptiness, it is gestation. When you close your eyes and assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you have already set the law in motion. Creation is finished the moment you imagine it with feeling. What follows in the physical world is not the making of it, but the unfolding of what has already been made. The silence that you encounter is not resistance, but the gap between inner conception and outer birth. That gap can feel like delay, but it is simply the natural order of manifestation. It must pass unseen through the bridge of incidents before it arrives clothed in form. Think of an artist painting in a studio behind closed doors. You have commissioned the work, and the artist has begun. You do not see every stroke of the brush. You are not present for every layer of color. For a time, there is silence. If you were to judge by appearances, you might think nothing is happening. But in truth, the painting is already complete in the artist's mind and is steadily taking shape. When the door finally opens, the finished work is revealed, and you realize that the silence was proof that creation was underway. In the same way, your unseen reality is being arranged in silence, and the lack of visible change is not absence, but activity hidden from your senses. Delay is the interpretation of the impatient mind. To the higher vision, there is no delay, only sequence. Events must unfold in a certain order. Connections must be made, paths must be prepared. If you look only at the surface, you may call it waiting, but beneath the surface, the threads are weaving together perfectly. You cannot see the whole tapestry while it is being woven, yet every thread is essential to the pattern. What feels like delay is often the arrangement of details you would not have thought to arrange yourself, the quiet weaving of circumstances that ensure the manifestation comes with precision. Silence is the language of completion. When the mind ceases its restless questioning, when imagination has impressed its pattern deeply upon consciousness, there is no need for noise or constant repetition. The silence is a sign that the work is done. Just as a builder lays the last stone and steps away, leaving behind a finished structure, so does imagination complete its task in silence. You do not need repeated signs or outer reassurances when the inner act is finished. The silence is itself the assurance. When you encounter silence after assuming your desire, do not treat it as void but as fullness. The earth does not rumble when the seed grows, yet beneath the surface, roots are spreading, stems are forming, and life is unfolding. The silence is not lifelessness, but quiet activity beyond your sight. To the one who trusts, silence is sacred. It is the calm that follows the creative act, the invisible stage of fulfillment. If you can accept this truth, then every period of seeming stillness will no longer trouble you. You will not interpret the absence of change as failure. You will not see the gap of time as rejection. You will understand that delay does not mean denial, and silence is not emptiness, but the very proof that the work is complete. The bridge of incidents is already unfolding to fulfill your assumption. The moment you enter into the state of your wish fulfilled, life begins to arrange itself in ways beyond the comprehension of your reasoning mind. You may not recognize it immediately, for the bridge often appears as ordinary events, small conversations, sudden encounters, or even unexpected detours. Yet every step, whether pleasant or uncomfortable, is moving you toward the manifestation of that which you have already accepted in imagination. The law of assumption does not fail. Once the end is assumed, the means are set into motion. This bridge is not something you must consciously design. You are not required to figure out the exact path from where you are to where you wish to be. The bridge of incidents arises naturally, following the invisible thread that connects your present state to your assumed end. Often, it will lead you in ways that seem illogical or even inconvenient, but later you will see the perfection of every step. Just as a river wins its way through valleys and bends, yet always reaches the ocean, so too does the bridge carry you, in its own winding course, to your fulfillment. Consider how many times in your life what you once called coincidence later revealed itself as destiny. A chance meeting became a lifelong relationship. A sudden change of plans opened the door to new opportunities. An event that seemed like a setback turned out to be the very thing that guided you to your goal. These are the workings of the bridge. What appears accidental to the surface mind is purposeful to the deeper law. The moment you assume the end, the path was chosen. You walk it whether you recognize it or not. The bridge of incidents is not always smooth. It may contain events that, at the time, feel disruptive or unwelcome. You may lose something you thought you needed, or find yourself taken out of familiar surroundings. Yet these very disturbances are often the exact conditions required for the manifestation to occur. The pruning of what no longer serves you, the redirection of your steps, the shifting of relationships, all of these are the movements of the bridge. To the mind that clings to the old, it may feel like loss, but to the one who trusts the law, it is simply transition. Once you have assumed the wish fulfilled, you must walk across the bridge with faith. You need not know how long it will take or what form it will appear in. Your task is only to remain faithful to the end you have imagined, not to doubt when the path looks uncertain. The bridge will carry you, whether you resist or surrender. But surrender makes the journey far lighter. To resist is to prolong your suffering, to demand that the path be different, to complain about its twists and turns. To surrender is to walk with confidence, knowing that every incident, no matter how small, is part of the unfolding. Think of a man who has purchased a train ticket. The destination is set, and the route is already laid out by tracks he did not build. He may not know each town the train will pass through, nor each stop it will make, but he trusts that the tracks will carry him to his destination. So it is with the bridge of incidents. Once the end has been assumed, the route is fixed. The events that unfold are the tracks beneath your feet, carrying you to that which already exists in imagination. You may marvel later at the perfection of the bridge. Looking back, you will see that nothing was wasted, that every encounter, every turn, every seeming delay played its role in bringing you to your end. In the moment, you may not understand it, but understanding is not required. The bridge does not ask for your permission. It only requires your faith. The unfolding is inevitable, for the bridge of incidents is already set in motion the instant you assumed your desire. Your only task is to persist in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Everything else is secondary, for the world outside is nothing more than the shadow cast by the inner state you occupy. If you remain faithful to that inner feeling, refusing to waver when appearances contradict it, the outer world must bend and conform. The seed of imagination needs only your persistence to grow. If you drop the feeling too soon, if you abandon the state before it has taken root, you delay the harvest. But if you persist, holding fast to the feeling as though it were already true, the law of consciousness guarantees its manifestation. Persistence does not mean constant effort or endless repetition. It does not mean struggling to hold the image every hour of the day or straining to suppress contrary thoughts. It means simply returning again and again to the inner state, resting in it until it becomes natural. Just as a new habit is formed through repetition until it no longer requires conscious effort, so does your assumption become second nature through persistence. In the beginning, it may feel like imagination. With persistence, it becomes conviction, and from conviction, it hardens into fact. The temptation is always to look outside for confirmation. When days pass without change, the mind whispers, "It is not working." When circumstances appear to worsen, the heart fears, "I have failed." But persistence requires you to ignore these voices and return to the end you have claimed. The outer world is slow to catch up with the inner, but it must catch up. The law cannot be broken. If you persist, the outer world has no choice but to reflect your assumption. Think of a sculptor chiseling away at a block of stone. Each stroke of the chisel may seem small, insignificant, even repetitive, yet slowly the form emerges. If he were to stop after the first few strokes, nothing would appear, and he might believe the stone unchangeable. But if he persists, patiently continuing, the image he envisioned is revealed. So, it is with your assumption. Each time you return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you are shaping the unseen substance of your world. You may not notice immediate change, but the form is emerging nonetheless. Persistence is not blind stubbornness, but faithful devotion. It is holding to the end regardless of the middle. The middle may be turbulent, full of contradictions and appearances that tempt you to give up. But if you remain steadfast, the middle will eventually yield to the end. The end is certain because you have already occupied it in imagination. Your task is not to control the events in between, not to manipulate the bridge of incidents, not to wrestle with appearances, but simply to remain loyal to the end. To persist is to live inwardly, as though it were already so. It is to walk through the day with the quiet assurance that what you have assumed is already accomplished. You may remind yourself in still moments, in prayer, in meditation, or in imagination before sleep. Each time you do, you reinforce the state until it dominates your consciousness. Eventually, it becomes easier to dwell in the end than to dwell in doubt, for persistence reshapes the mind itself. The great test is always when nothing seems to happen. Most abandon the state too soon, deciding that their efforts have failed. But those who persist discover that the silence is not denial, that the lack of evidence is not rejection. They discover that persistence carries them through every contrary appearance and delivers them to the fulfillment of their desire. The world cannot resist the one who persists in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, for consciousness is the only reality, and persistence in consciousness is the guarantee of its outward expression. What you seek is certain, it is coming, trust the process. The very moment you conceive of a desire and embrace it in imagination, its fulfillment becomes inevitable. You may doubt because the senses offer no proof, but the law does not require proof from the outer world to operate. The law works in silence, in certainty, beyond the reach of human questioning. If you can imagine it and accept it as real within, then it already exists in the unseen. The world of form is simply catching up, arranging itself to reveal what is already true in consciousness. To say that what you seek is certain is to acknowledge that desire itself is a sign of possession. You could not even long for that which does not already exist in potential. Just as thirst proves that water exists, just as hunger proves that food exists, so too does your desire prove that its fulfillment is real. The fact that you can feel it, that you can sense its reality inwardly, is evidence enough that it is yours. Doubt arises only when you forget this truth and allow appearances to deceive you. Trusting the process means releasing the compulsion to control every step. The human mind wants to know how, when, and through whom the desire will come. It wants to map out the path, to predict the sequence, to demand visible progress. Yet the process cannot be confined to your limited reasoning. The bridge of incidents is far too vast, too intricate, too perfectly woven for you to design it yourself. When you trust the process, you allow the unseen intelligence to orchestrate events in ways you could not have imagined. You let go of strain, knowing the law is at work even when you cannot perceive it. There is a rhythm to manifestation that you cannot alter, but you can align with it. Just as a seed must first root itself in darkness before rising toward the sun, your assumption must first take root in the unseen before it blossoms in the visible. To trust the process is to honor that rhythm, to rest in the knowledge that the invisible stage is just as vital as the visible one. When nothing appears to be happening, much is happening. When silence surrounds you, it is only because creation does not announce itself with noise. The certainty of your desire's fulfillment is not dependent on your worthiness or your effort. It is dependent only on the law, and the law is impersonal, exact, and unfailing. You need not earn your desire. You need only assume it. You need not beg for it. You need only dwell in its feeling. The process does not discriminate. It mirrors faithfully what you persist in assuming to be true. That is why certainty belongs not to the outer world, but to your inner conviction. If you claim it within, the outer must reflect it without. What you call waiting is simply alignment. Life is arranging the details, weaving together circumstances, preparing the stage upon which your desire will appear. If you were to see the full picture, you would marvel at its precision. The chance encounters, the delays, the detours, all of these are elements of the process. To the impatient eye, they look like obstacles, but to the eye of faith, they are signs that the law is at work. Every piece is falling into place, though the picture is not yet visible. Certainty grows when you stop questioning and start resting. Each time you return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you strengthen the inner reality, and the outer world cannot resist it. The process may be silent, but it is not uncertain. The outcome is guaranteed because consciousness creates reality, and you have already sown the seed in consciousness. What you seek is not a matter of chance. It is the unfolding of law, the revelation of what already is. It is coming, and your part is simply to trust.